And hello and welcome to the Gaming Perspective, episode 15. That Mass Effect, though. So we've got a lot to talk about this week. We got Nintendo's outstanding financials. We've got EA's financials with a little bit of a twist near the end. We got Paris Game Week canceled due to COVID-19. Mick Gordon officially parting ways from id Software, and a new Last of Us Part 2 trailer. In case you have not seen enough of that game already. So, and we also need to talk about the Inside Xbox Next Generation discussion and what we saw and everything else. So we got a lot to talk about. Plus, we have a special guest today. So I will introduce the regular panel as I always do. And joining us from Windows Central, iMore, and Android Central, Mr. Samuel Tolbert.
God, man, take a breath. Breathe in, breathe out. It's not that complicated. It's good to be here. I know we're actually a lot earlier than usual, but it is for an incredibly good reason that we will get to very shortly. We have a lot of good stuff to go through, so happy to be here.
Absolutely. And also joining us from the cold and snowy areas of Alberta, Canada, and part of the Lords of Gaming.net, Mr. Jared Eden.
How's it going, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, we got a very special guest on here and lots of interesting things to talk about, especially this past week. So let's get her talking.
Absolutely. And also joining me from a place that does not know what snow looks like, from sunny North Florida or South Florida, I will never remember, member of Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, Mr. Eric Jackson.
Well, hello. I would say my state is very versed in snow, just not the cold kind.
Actually, never mind yet.
Okay.
I'll take that.
I mean, I am near South Beach. I'll just say we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
So anyway, happy to be here. Excited to have our guest. Really cool dude. Looking forward to getting to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm Nicholas Downey. I am the co-editor-in-chief of lordsofgaming.net. You can find all my stuff on Twitter at Undead3XVI. And joining us for the first time, all the way from Germany, is Marcel. Let's have a little introduction of yourself and what you do, sir.
Yeah, hey, thank you very much for having me. So yes, as people may have deduced already, I am the reason for the unusual time, so sorry about that, but it's already 10 p.m. over here in my part of the world. My name is Marcel. I've been working in the games industry for coming up on 9 years now in a variety of marketing and community roles for a variety of largely very cool companies. And more importantly, I've been playing video games for 23 years, and I love any opportunity to talk about video games, especially if it's in such fine company. So thank you guys for having me. And I have to agree with Sam at the start in the intro. I was wondering how long you could keep going before you have to take a breath. That was quite impressive.
Well, basically, I never used to do intros like that, and then after I got unfortunately sick with COVID, and I had a very hard time doing the show for a couple of weeks for obvious reasons. So the intro became more of a flex that I could breathe again more than anything else, and now it's just kind of evolved into an every week thing. So. It's great to have you on, and I'm glad we could find a time that worked for everyone. It was really easy to do, so definitely looking forward to talking with you guys. So, as we ask every week, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been playing this week, and of course, since Marcel's our guest, I will let him go first. What have you been playing this week on your free time?
I've been playing a bunch of stuff, way too much and way too late into the night. Valorant, like the closed beta, been enjoying that immensely. Playing with a group of friends that, like, some of them I've already been playing Counter-Strike 1.6, or even before that, like Counter-Strike the beta, back like in '98 or something. Some friends from school, so that's been great. I think that game is gonna become, pretty big. I've dabbled a little bit in Gears Tactics, which is super fun game. Like, I haven't gotten around to spending more time, but I think if you enjoy Gears or tactical games, you should definitely take a look. Plus, it looks fantastic. And I have something very old schooly and not as graphically impressive anymore, but maybe it's of interest to you, Nick, because I know you share my love for Baldur's Gate. I've been playing a little bit of Icewind Dale 2 from GOG, which, it's a fun game, but it doesn't hold up as much technically anymore. But still. So yeah, a wide variety of genres, of graphics, anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Icewind Dale too. That's a good one. I really love that game. I haven't had a chance to go back to it since oh wow, long time ago. Might have to pick that up on GOG because that was a great game. I wish my PC ran Gears Tactics. I'm gonna have to sell a kidney to get a PC that runs well.
It really is a great game. So like I don't think they've announced a date yet for when it's going to be on console, right? But whenever it is, obviously it's in Game Pass anyway. So if you get a chance, I would highly encourage you to give it a try. Like it's a really good game.
It runs on my very low end PC, guarantee for Gears Tactics. Like I have a 760 GTX 760 on there. So if you want to play Gears Tactics, it may not look the greatest, but it'll actually run pretty smooth. It was running at 60 frames a second. Low to mid settings, but 60 frames a second steady. Impressive.
And yeah, I mean it's turn-based, right? Like even if you don't have like that super smooth 60 FPS, as long as you can run it, I think you're gonna have a good time probably.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually the gameplay is very satisfactory.
I will have to install that on my wife's computer and see if I can kick her off of it for a bit and get a chance to play that. So we'll go right down the list. Eric, I haven't really been talking to you too much this week. What have you been playing this week?
All my time has actually been dedicated to Middle-earth: Shadow of War. I've been deep in that. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to do. So if you're an OCD gamer, there's a lot to distract you and keep you going. And other than that, that's pretty much been it.
Man, I want to get into Shadow of War because Shadow of Mordor was such a great game. I avoided Shadow of War at launch because of everyone whining about it, and I didn't want to hear it. But I want to go back and give it another shot for sure.
So good. So good.
Yeah, it's been so long. I don't even really remember what the whining was about, which is a good thing. And Frankie kind of reminded me, and I thought, man, I totally put that out of my mind because it kind of came flooding back. But I remember, yeah, it was a point of contention.
It was the whole loot boxes versus grind argument, and then they patched it, I think, within the first week or 2 weeks, where they took out that artificial grind, and people still went on about it for like 3 months, but that's pretty typical. Yeah, I need to play that. I own it too. God, I gotta stop. You guys are adding lists of games that I need to play while I'm already swamped with games, so that's great. Love you guys.
Well, yeah, well, this has been on the backlog list. You know, it's one of those ones that started right after Sekiro and then got distracted by some other stuff. So, so I'm back in.
Imagine getting distracted by Sekiro. Jeez. Anyways, moving on.
Nick.
You know I can't go a podcast without making a poke at FromSoft. Jared, what have you been playing this week, my friend?
All right, so really, this time around it's only been down to just 2 games. So I've been continuing my Odyssey and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And I've decided to start the Atlantis campaign, so that has been pretty enjoyable. And then I've been putting more time into Days Gone, and I'm finally getting around to the end of that game. It's a lot longer than I expected, and I'm kind of okay with that, honestly. I'm really enjoying killing these zombies.
Now,
not zombies. Get it right.
Yes.
Same thing.
Matt, no, they're different. They freak out more.
They freak out.
No, I want to preface this to you, Jared, because you're playing Days Gone now. Me and Sam played Days Gone at launch. Do you feel like you could have done without the first 10 hours of that game?
A little bit, yes. I understand it builds up the story, but there's a lot of story in this game. You could probably cut down on a little bit and save some time.
It wasn't even necessarily cutting it down. The first 10 hours felt very, very slow, and then the last 30 hours is such a whirlwind of amazingly paced story.
Yeah.
We may actually have to. Eric, have you played Days Gone yet?
It's in the list.
Okay, well, once Eric gets to it, I would love to do a retrospective look back on the game and talk about it, because I think there's a lot of different aspects of that game that were really, really good that it doesn't get credit for, and there's some things that were really, really bad that get overlooked as well. So I'd love to talk about that.
Yes.
See, that's the thing, man. Like, all the games that I have lined up that I'm really looking forward to playing, every one of them, well, not every one of them, I should say, but a good portion of them are like massive games.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that will take like time commitment. So yeah, it's on there. I'm gonna get to it, but yeah. because I still have both. I still have both Origins and Odyssey to play through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
absolutely.
37% into Shadow of War, so let that sink in. And I've already been on it for, I want to say, close to 25 hours.
Whew. Nice.
Maybe 30 hours, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's Lord of the Rings, so it's okay.
Yeah, and it led me into watching the trilogy again this week. So.
Impeccable taste.
Yeah.
Sam.
No,
You know, debunking the whole thing of games journalists don't play games. What have you been playing this week, sir?
Mainly, I've actually just been grinding my multiplayer games since the season is getting a bit long in the tooth for both of them. Modern Warfare, primarily the Warzone Battle Royale, and then Gears 5. I've been grinding in both of those, trying to rank up in, the battle passes, get the new skins and stuff like that. So, plus, I've kind of had a busy week, so that's kind of all I've had time to earn. But, I've been toying around with a little bit of stuff here and there. I've been playing a bit of the Warcraft 3 Reforged campaign, which it's a shame everything that happened with that game, but the campaign levels themselves still hold up really well. Like, that stuff is still really good. I've been playing a little bit of Total War Warhammer 2 as well, getting prepped for the next DLC that is dropping. And Creative Assembly has done such a remarkable job supporting that game. It's just DLC after DLC after DLC, pack after pack after pack. It's when Game 3 finally drops, probably next year, that is going to be like something that there is no comparison to. There's nothing else like it in the gaming world. But yeah, that's basically what I've been up to.
Awesome, man. Yeah, and I guess for me, I had a little bit of a rough week, so to speak. I got cut down by 33% of my hours were cut down, so I'm down to 38 hours a week of work now. So I have a lot more time to play games than I was, but now I don't have money to buy games. So I'm 100% wholly dedicated to my backlog now, and I'm not buying any games until basically next generation starts kicking off.
Good one.
Actually, no, it's that's literally what's going to be, because if I buy games, I won't be able to afford next gen consoles. So the only things I will be buying is like The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and Cyberpunk. And as I'm saying that, I bought Assassin's Creed Odyssey because it was on sale, and I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game since I think Assassin's Creed 3. And holy cow, is that game beautiful, big, and I'm totally intimidated by the size of it, but I'm really excited. It's been a long time since I've played something to that scale, so I'm kind of really excited to jump into it. I've been absolutely smacking people around in Gears 5, doing some pretty disrespectful things with Sam in that game. And I am still hopelessly and endlessly addicted to State of Decay 2 because I cannot stop playing that game. I do not know why. I spent like 3 hours this morning playing it instead of sleeping. I don't know why. Eric?
Hey, man. From software slander, I'm going back at you, man.
Okay, touche. I deserve that. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the game. The Juggernaut update was and is fantastic. I keep finding new stuff that I either didn't realize was in the game originally, or they changed it, and it's just really great quality of life fixes. So shout out to Undead Labs for that, because they've done fantastic with the DLC, the free updates, and just really a lot of love put into that game that I feel like no one ever gives it credit for. And yeah, it's just a really great game, and I'm hopelessly addicted to it. And I started a new playthrough on Baldur's Gate 2, which should surprise nobody. But yeah, that's basically what I've been playing. And
hey, can I ask a real question really quick? Are you guys picking up the lawnmower of my neighbor next door?
Nope.
I mean, okay. He's got like all day, and he decides to like right now.
That's always how it works.
Right.
You know what? I actually wouldn't mind right now because I've been stuck in winter all the time. I need something to remind me that spring is actually here. So
that is actually like. hair and everything going. Okay.
Grass is just turning green here, man. It's not. It's like half brown. Okay.
All right. I just want to make sure.
Isn't that how it always works? Like at least you have the weather where they're mowing your grass. Okay, I woke up this morning. I slept for 1 hour because my kids I couldn't fall asleep till 4 a.m. My kids got me up at 5 a.m. I'm sitting there at 5:30 in the morning. My kids are already bouncing off both walls, absolutely excited for the day. And I look outside and it's snowing in May, and I just sit there and I'm just wondering to myself, is there a God? Because if there is, he is laughing at me right now.
I got snow in the forecast for tomorrow, Mother's Day. Yay, wonderful.
Yeah, but you live in Calgary. You guys deserve that.
Yeah. I know.
So it's the exciting time. It's now May, so we start getting into year-end financial reporting. So Nintendo had probably one of the most Nintendo sales reports ever. And I've really got to say, the turnaround that Nintendo's seen from the Wii U to the Nintendo Switch is absolutely amazing. Especially when you start talking about the support for their first-party software. That's what I want to talk about first, because for me, the sales of the Nintendo Switch are astounding, but the sales numbers for their games themselves are absolutely insane. Like, I've never seen attach rates this high for any console ever, and I think everyone across the board has said this. So, in top 10 descending order, so number 10 spot, new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe sold 6.6 million. Super Mario Party at number 9 for 10.10 million. Splatoon 2 for 10 million. Animal Crossing New Horizon at number 7 for 11.77 million. What's really impressive about that is with only 11 days of tracking. Animal Crossing sold almost 12 million units in 11 days, which is...
That's a million a day. That's over 1 million a day. Like, that's insane numbers.
Yep. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu Eevee at 11.97 million. Pokemon Sword and Shield for 17.37 million. Super Mario Odyssey for 17.4 million. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 17.41 million. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at 18.84 million. And at the number 1 spot, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 24.77 million copies. And I feel like it's super important to note that you will never find any of these copies under $40 or $50. So this is full price unit sale, basically.
True. True.
So kind of go down the line and let's talk about Nintendo Switch software. We'll start with Marcel. What do you think? Do you play a lot of Switch or no?
It's kind of weird for me. Like I have a Switch I picked up I think like 2 months or so after launch, and I always I want to find more reasons to use it because like just the concept and the kit itself, it's amazing. Like it's a stroke of genius that I think like they got exactly the right product at the right time. Unfortunately, like a lot of Nintendo games aren't really my cup of tea. So I think the games that I've been playing the most on there are Diablo 3 and the Baldur's Gate collection, like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, the remasters.
Nice.
But I've been thinking about this quite a bit, because we also discussed on my own podcast, and I've been very hard pressed to think of a game that came out at a more perfect time than Animal Crossing. Right before everybody went to lockdown into self-isolation. Like I just can't think. I just cannot think of a better time that a very specific game ever came out. Because that was really the thing. For example, for me, it was like I wasn't sure if I should pick it up. Like I had never played an Animal Crossing before, but then it turned out okay. So we'd be stuck at home for a couple of weeks at least. And my girlfriend had been a big fan of Viva Pinata back in the day, so I bought it for myself. I played it for a couple of days. I haven't had access to my Switch since because the lady's been playing every single day. And I think I don't think that's an exception. Like when I look at my Twitter timeline, like every week, just like the turnip stock market. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I'm seeing way more people discussing, like the stock market for virtual turnips in video game, than I see, a lot of like what people would say, like the serious games. Like it's crazy. Like, I don't think anybody could have, released a game at a better time. And I think like they also said that already at this point. I think up to today, more or less, they sold around like 15 million copies, and they already sold more than they thought like the game would sell lifetime. So it's like all credit to Nintendo. Clearly, they're doing things, even if a lot of the games are not for me. I think they're doing a fantastic job with the hardware, with getting games out that people want to play. And yeah, as you said, I think the really fascinating thing with Nintendo is that they have somehow conditioned their customers, to just buy the games at that full price. Whereas for most of the companies, you're used to prices dropping quickly after a couple of months at the latest. And with Nintendo, it's like, this game is 3 years old, it's still at the cheapest, like $40. That's really crazy with them.
Yeah, like I bought a Switch just around Christmas time, and I got Breath of the Wild on a EB Games massive Christmas sale, and I still paid $59 for it. Keeping in mind full price game in Canada is $79 plus tax, so I saved about $20 for a game that was a launch title, which is absolutely insane. Because if you go and look, even if you went back a few years ago and looked at Xbox One and PlayStation 4 launch titles, you won't find them above $5-10 at this point. But yeah, Animal Crossing is like the perfect situation of people preparing for a lockdown or knowing it was coming. Like, I had already gotten sick and I was quarantined when Animal Crossing came out, but shout out to my EB Games manager who knows me personally and knew I had my pre-orders paid off. He dropped them at my front door, my Doom Eternal and my Animal Crossing copy, and that game was huge for spending like almost, I was at home by myself for 14 days, and it gave me a sense of normalcy and everything else. I think a lot of people are using it for a great source of escapism right now. But we'll go with Sam next. Sam, what do you think Nintendo software sales?
Tom Nook is leaning back in a chair, swilling a glass of, special Kentucky bourbon, chomping on a cigar, laughing his head off, because this is ridiculous. We make memes, we make jokes, but in all seriousness, Animal Crossing has gone from this little niche. It had a couple of games, they sold well. New Leaf sold all right, it did good numbers. As Nintendo software does. It's gone from that to one of their top IPs. Like, alongside Mario and Zelda level. That's ridiculous. That's just overnight, it's now a bigger deal than Metroid is. Just to put that out there. That's just how it is. And I think that moving forward, I don't think Nintendo was quite prepared for how big this game is. I think they knew it would be big, but they didn't know it would be this big. And sure, that's exacerbated perhaps due to the quarantine and everything in the lockdown and all that going on, but that's not going to go away even as life goes back to normal over the next 18 months. If there is even a thing as normal, put that in some imaginary quotation marks. The fact of the matter is, this is going to change their strategy moving forward. And I'm going to be fascinated to see what that looks like. Does that mean a longer tail for Animal Crossing support? Does that mean DLC in some fashion? Does that mean the next Animal Crossing game comes quicker? I don't know. I don't know what that looks like, but it is going to change something. Nintendo can sometimes be a little slower or more behind the times than others, but they are going to recognize just how well this is doing.
Well, yeah.
I think what was also very telling about like Animal Crossing was like that was the time when GameStop fought off tooth and nail having to close their shops so they could at least have the launch day of Animal Crossing.
Yep.
That was the time when they told their employees to pretend that they were an essential business, just to get that first day business. And as you can see now, of course, from those 11 million sales in 11 days, like clearly, that was probably for a lot of locations, if they were open, that probably saved them for a couple of weeks just the sales of that game. So that is, it's absolutely mind-blowing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Eric and Jared, anything in regards to the Nintendo sales that you guys want to talk about? Either of you guys own Mario Kart, because that's like one of the only first-party games I don't own for my Switch.
Oh yeah,
I will with mine. Just saying. That's the reason why I got it. But like, I'll just quickly say before Eric, like, there's not much to add. It's insane. Holy crap! Nintendo's doing something right. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, I was gonna say no. I am one of those double dippers. I had a Wii U, and again, I think I told you guys like last week, talking to Gaming Forte, who's a manager at a GameStop, said he's also sold through all of his Wii U stuff. Because it's just the situation we're in. People are just looking for anything gaming, anything to stay busy. So it's definitely not surprising, but it's crazy. But yeah, I have Mario Kart 8 on both the Wii U and the Switch. It's just one of those necessity must-have type games for owning a Nintendo system. And it's just crazy, man. But what was that number again on Animal Crossing?
11.77 million units sold in 11 days.
In 11 days.
That's just through March. That's just through the end of March, to be clear.
To tag on to what Sam said, yeah, New Leaf did pretty good over the span of its life. I think it was like 12.5 million over the span of its life. From launch to now. So yeah, so Sam's absolutely right. That's probably Mario. It could be Mario, Animal Crossing, Zelda at this point. If you really want to think about it, how Nintendo's looking at it, they may have nudged. They may have dropped Zelda down like a notch.
I really think that Nintendo is starting to realize that there were some titles they kept on 3DS that they didn't put on Wii U. And I was thinking they're starting to realize that those titles, because of the hybrid console format for the Nintendo Switch, those games work really well. Because like, I remember buying my Wii U, and being like, it's Nintendo. They're gonna have amazing games. I just gotta wait a bit. And they announced Luigi's Mansion, but they announced it for 3DS and not for the Wii U. And that was the breaking point of me selling my Wii U, because I was like, why can't I play Luigi's Mansion? Why do I need a 3DS to play Luigi's Mansion when it was a GameCube game? And seeing Animal Crossing, which I believe was on 3DS, was that on Wii U as well?
Just 3DS.
No, just 3DS.
So they took Animal Crossing off of 3DS, put on Switch. It's doing insane numbers. They took Luigi's Mansion, took it off 3DS, put it onto consoles. That still did really good numbers, considering Luigi's not considered a quote-unquote big-name Nintendo character, which blows my mind.
Well, I think Nintendo does whatever they can to kind of like to prop him up, but then disrespect him so he doesn't like surpass Mario.
Yeah,
because they definitely they gave him like a whole like celebration over the I think at the end of the Wii U life cycle, but it was still sort of like celebration, but not celebration.
Yeah,
which to be honest, I felt a little bit forced. Like that whole like, yay Luigi, and you're like, okay, the hardcore Nintendo fans are into this, but I think like most of the larger audiences like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
But what I think like a very good thing that you just touched on is obviously that in the past like Nintendo had like this dual strategy of like we have our home console, we have our handheld, and each of them like kind of gets different games. Of course, like some of the brands were in both of them, but like obviously what is like really helping them in the fact that they just have the Switch right now, which can cater to both audiences, is that stuff like there was traditionally more like a handheld thing, like Pokemon or so is doing gangbusters as well, of course, on the Switch. So like really I think like for their studios and their teams, it's amazing this idea of like you just have to support one platform more or less, and that can work for both audiences, for the people that want to go like take the gaming on the roads, traveling, whatever, or the people who just want to sit at home in front of a TV.
Yeah.
Like they found their model moving forward. They're not going to deviate away from this.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Sam. I think that's it. I don't think you see any more like dual SKUs from Nintendo as far as like a handheld and a console. That's a wrap.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting because like everyone who has a Switch either plays it one or two ways. I've never seen someone really blend it. Like I myself, like my Switch dock isn't even hooked up to my TV. It's literally just a charging station. Me and my wife have never played the Switch on the TV. I've never played my Nintendo Switch on my TV. It's always handheld mode. Yet my friend, who plays the Switch all the time, won't play it in handheld mode and only plays it docked. And there's very few people I know that seem to rotate through that. People either treat it like a home console or they treat it like a handheld. And I think Nintendo's blending of that is brilliant, because it was almost with the Wii U, they almost had it. Because when I bought the Wii U, I thought the tablet was going to be on the go. Like, I thought it meant that I could take my games with me. But they're like, no, you can't even go to the bathroom with this and play it. Like, you gotta still be in front of your TV. And I think that the Switch is just the Wii U just fully realized. And we'll talk about the hardware sales too, because the hardware numbers are insane too. So the Nintendo Switch is already the third best-selling Nintendo console of all time. It is sitting at 55.77 million units sold. And the absolutely insane part of this is the software sales on is already at 356 million. So it's already surpassed the SNES, Nintendo 64, GameCube, and obviously the Wii U in console sales. It will quickly probably gain ground on the NES, which is at 61 million. And I have a hard time believing, what will depend on this factor is how long the Switch is supported for before they either change SKUs or develop the next Nintendo console. But I could see the Nintendo Switch, if it can keep the momentum it has, it'll definitely pass the Wii. I just don't know what the next big step is for Nintendo necessarily in terms of that game that's going to make people go out and run and grab a Switch again. That's going to come out in a realistic timeline. Like, I don't know what they're doing for holiday 2020, but
Give me Metroid Prime.
So, see, that actually leads into something to continue the Switch train for just a little bit longer, if you don't mind, Nick, that I wanted to ask. I know this wasn't on the docket, but here's the thing. It's becoming increasingly obvious to me, this is me personally, you guys might disagree, that Metroid Prime 4 and Bayonetta 3 were both supposed to come out this year. But those were supposed to be the 2020 games. I don't think it's realistic to assume Breath of the Wild 2 is at this point, that we're in the middle of the May, we would have heard about it. So the question is, given Nintendo's momentum right now, and the rumored Mario ports of like games like Galaxy and 64 and all that, do they just ride out the storm of not having a lot of major games this year, and let them come in 2021 when they will? Or do you think they have something else up their sleeves?
Well, let me just put it this way. I think Nintendo could literally get away with just releasing a port of Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy, and then throw a Metroid Prime trilogy into the mix, and people will forget that there isn't anything, in quotations, new. Because all of those games will sell 10 million copies at $60, guaranteed.
Yep, that's my same sentiment right there. Just as long as if you give those out, I think the fan base will be extremely happy. I'll be happy alone if you give me the Metroid Prime trilogy right now. I'll play that for the rest of the year and only that game. I swear. I swear.
Hey, let's just keep in mind, like, there's a ton of great third-party software coming to the Switch. Like, we are going to be able to play Crysis on a Nintendo Switch. I have no idea what that's going to look like, but it's going to happen, and my Switch is probably going to blow up way faster than it did with Cooking Mama.
I was just going to say, there's going to be a lot of technical hardware issues with some of these Switches. I tell you, they're going to be reporting back like, hey, Nintendo, yeah, my Switch caught on fire.
I cannot wait to see the Digital Foundry article for that on the videos for Crysis on Switch. That's gonna be. I know, like I'm sure, like Alex from Digital Foundry, like he's already like, chomping at the bits to get on that one.
Just remember Alex and John's reaction. Shout out to both of them, by the way. They both put up with a lot of crap, and they're both incredible dudes who do a great job. But Alex and John, I just remember their reaction when it was announced that, oh yeah, and this will have ray tracing. It's like, okay, sure. Let's see what that looks like.
On the Switch? What?
Yeah, I think it's the only the second game ever, I think, that uses CryEngine that's on a Nintendo platform. So I know it's.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Does anybody remember what the first game was? Which is still hilarious to me.
Yeah,
Not at all.
You'd be more of an
Sonic
expert
Boom.
on that than. Oh, there we go.
Sonic Boom, which is still like mind blowing to me to this day. That out of all the things in the world, somebody was like, "Yeah, let's do a Sonic game for Nintendo console, and maybe let's use CryEngine for that." That's like one of these things. Like if you told it to somebody, they'd be like, "That sounds way too far fetched," but somehow that happened. So that's amazing.
Wow.
No kidding. Wow.
I never even knew that Sonic game ran on CryEngine. That's insane.
It did, and I think like one of the reasons like those people I think like get way too much shit because for the game, because honestly, I think like to me it was like already a impressive marvel in the first place that they managed to get that engine running more or less by themselves on that platform. So kudos to those guys. And I also like the scarf. I feel like Sonic can pull off a scarf. That's fine.
Yeah, I respect the either scarf Sonic, or I even think throwing an ascot on Sonic is fine.
Ascot.
What?
Fred.
Yeah, sorry, my kids are watching the old Hanna-Barbera Scooby-Doo a lot, so the word ascot has been imprinted in my head lately.
I thought there'd be a Scooby-Doo reference somewhere.
Yeah, but overall, though, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I feel like 2019/2020 for Nintendo was similar to what 2018 was for Sony in terms of a bunch of games hitting way bigger than people expected them to. And I think it's going to be hard for them to replicate that this year. But I just don't feel safe making a prediction because, like, my Nintendo predictions have never been right yet. Like, I've never been right about Nintendo since they've launched the Switch. Because I was like, no one's going to buy the Switch. Who wants a hybrid console? Well, 55 million people want a hybrid console. So, I'm just going to pretend that I don't know what I'm talking about, apparently. But, diving into more financials, because there's a lot of them with year-end and everything else. There was some interesting stuff in EA's financials. I'm going to toss it over to Sam, because he butchers financial stuff way less than I do. Sam, what were some of the interesting takeaways from EA's financials?
EA's financials. Okay. Interesting. I don't think there were many interesting takeaways, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, Nick. I'm used to listening to dull financial calls, but I'm not exaggerating when I say that EA's recent financial call was the dullest I've ever listened to. Ever. That it was terrible. But there was one interesting highlight, which is good, and that is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order has crossed over 10 million players. I know that isn't an exact sales count, however, it's a single-player game, so there's that side of things. And also, in their previous quarterly earnings, EA did confirm that Fallen Order had beaten expectations, which was the original expectations were between 6 to 8 million copies sold. So it's probably not exactly 10 million copies sold, but it's probably close to it, like 8.8, 9.2 million. So, something like that's probably very realistic. That was kind of the highlight. Beyond that, EA talked a little bit about next-gen upgrades, where they said that, well, their chief financial officer, to be clear, said that they were open to the thought of free upgrades on both consoles, the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, that they were open to upgrading their cross-gen games with no issues there. They talked about their future releases. To no one's great shock and horror, it includes FIFA 21, and Madden NFL 21, NHL 21, another EA Sports game that remains undisclosed, 4 EA Partners games, which EA Partners is their indie/AA development program, stuff like A Way Out, or what was it, Sea of Solitude, I believe, that came out last year.
Yeah, and
which I
like Unravel and those kind of games.
Right, that sort of stuff. So they've got 4 EA Partners titles, the VR game Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, and a, quote, EA HD game, unquote. And it's that last part that is kind of eyebrow-raising, because good old dude Jeff Grubb over at VentureBeat, in his financial report, basically ended it by saying, oh yeah, by the way, that EA HD game is a Mass Effect Trilogy remaster. So it took a little while for that to spread, but once it did, there you go. If anyone has anything they want to say about EA's financials, they by all means, but I think the highlight here is obviously Fallen Order and then the potential remaster trilogy announcement.
It's so funny because, like, when Jeff Grubb brought it up, I remember seeing him tweet and I went, oh, that's really cool. And then, like, 23 hours later, I saw people writing about it. I'm like, wait, it took that long? I remember back, I think it was like 2 months ago, Shinobi was hinting at that there'd be a Mass Effect remaster or whatever the case may be, HD pack. I'm excited. I've never played Mass Effect, and
what is wrong with you?
Especially if you like Baldur's Gate, what is wrong
Ex-
with you?
exactly. Thank you. Like, good lord.
I was an RPG guy when Mass Effect came out, and by the time I got into RPG super heavy again, I felt like I was too late. And after playing through the original Final Fantasy VII now, I think I can go back and play Mass Effect and not worry about it because everyone's like, it's aged horribly, everything else. But I think if I can get through the original Final Fantasy VII and the 5,000 encounters that I had to go through to get through Final Fantasy VII, I feel like I can get through Mass Effect. But an HD trilogy remaster, or I put in quotations remaster because EA has a pretty decent track record of having some pretty average remasters. I'm excited. I imagine everyone's going to be day one on a Mass Effect remaster. But what do you think the remaster will look like? Obviously we aren't getting like a remake of Mass Effect or anything like that. Do you think it'll just be up-res, or will it just be the PC version ported across? What do you guys think we're looking at?
Either of those scenarios don't sound great.
Yeah.
I mean,
Expanding on Eric's comment there, the PC versions of the Mass Effect games, particularly the first one, are notoriously buggy. The first Mass Effect game has some infamous issues on PC where Garrus' face just looks like a blur and it doesn't actually render properly. And if you're using an AMD card past a certain generation, or excuse me, an AMD processor past a certain generation, it just doesn't render on two planets, so you look like black blobs rather than characters. So, for the love of God, I hope it's not a straight PC port. I'll say that. It needs some love. They can probably, I don't know if you agree with this, Eric, Marcel, or Jared, they can probably get away with just sort of up-resing and, upping the frame rate on 2 and 3, but 1 needs some love and care.
Yeah.
It really does.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah, I think like you said, 2 and 3 can pass. They could probably pass. But 1, yeah, mechanic-wise, yeah.
I think if you just go for 60 FPS, higher res, lower loading times, and of course I can't remember if the others had it, but like the first one still had the notorious early 360 generation texture pop-in that Unreal Engine was legendary for, like where everything took like 2 seconds or so to come into focus. I think if they fix all of that stuff, on the tech side, then that is already, I think, a pretty decent way to play those games. Because obviously, gameplay-wise, narrative, everything, they're still top-notch. But yeah, it's been a while since they came out, and I think just having them at on modern machines like 60 FPS, 60 FPS, 4K should not be an issue for them to achieve. I think that would be pretty great. I just want to note, completely regardless of what Jeff said, because that was something that I noticed where a lot of people, as soon as EA said that during the financial call, they talked about an HD title and everybody jumped on it. It must be a remaster. HD title just means for them it's a console or PC game. So it doesn't necessarily mean that is a remaster. It just means it's HD is what a lot of people in the industry, even though it's weird, of course, because even mobile games are super HD these days. When you say HD in like financial stuff, it means it's a console and or PC game as opposed to mobile. But there's obviously my tendency with rumors is if there's an outrageous amount of smoke, there's probably a fire somewhere. And as you say, there's been Jeff, there's been Shinobi, there's been a lot of people expecting a Mass Effect trilogy remaster, and I'd be super happy if that were true.
Same. I love those games. Jank aside, some of my fondest memories are staying up late at night, playing through the first couple of games. So I hope it happens. And briefly touching on that, while I'm not expecting anything incredible, EA does have EA Play Live digital show coming on June 11th. So I imagine if this is true, that's where we'll see it announced.
It'll be interesting. I'm interested to see what EA's going to do in terms of some of the stuff they've got coming up. I'm kind of interested in a few things. What Respawn's doing next in terms of are they doing a Star Wars game? Are they going to do their Titanfall game? I'm interested to see what Respawn's doing because that team's growing at such a massive rate, and I'm so incredibly happy that they've had success in basically everything they've done. and people are starting to realize what tier level of a developer they are. Glad to see Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order doing so well. And I think the real big question for me is like, what are we going to see long term? Because they've got some stuff up in the air right now. Like, there's no way, like, I'm going to phrase this to Jared, actually. Jared, there's no way they do this EA play and they don't talk about the long term plans for Anthem or have something to show, right?
I would sure hope they do. After someone that's put an extensive amount of time into that game, I really, really hope they come out and be like, hey, this is what we're working on with Anthem. We told you that we're giving it a bit of a reboot at Anthem 2.0. This is our goals. This is what we're working towards when we start from here on forward. Like they did with the original launch of the game, be nice and transparent with what they're doing. I would like to see that same mentality going forward if they were to bring that up over at the EA Play.
Of course, people probably also thought the exact same thing last year, where I was sitting there watching as somebody. So going into last year, like Anthem was far and away my most anticipated game. So when it came out, I finished the campaign. I had a lot of fun. I still think there's a ton of potential in that game. But obviously, it was not quite what people expected. And then I sat there at E3 thinking, like, they must say something. Surely, this is the ginormous elephant in the room, and there was nothing at all. Like, so that was like really quite impressive. Like, I think it was very telling in the way they very specifically talked about everything except Anthem. So yeah, I think it was very surprising actually to hear that they're really going for this like this big rework. I mean, initially like Jason Schreier from then Kotaku, now Bloomberg, hinted at it before Casey Hudson later confirmed, which is always super funny to me to see him every time, because my first steps in the games industry working at a fan site for the original Knights of the Old Republic, the single player RPG, and like the first interaction I ever had with anybody in the games industry was a by mail interview of Casey Hudson. So whenever like I see him pop up somewhere, I'm like, man, like it's been a while. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's. I so want, like, I'm not a huge, like, I wasn't big into Anthem because I'm not into the whole loot-driven games kind of thing. They don't really appeal to me. But I want Anthem to have that No Man's Sky, Rainbow Six Siege, Sea of Thieves resurgence, because I don't want to see BioWare have to go from Mass Effect Andromeda to Anthem and then not find success long-term with it, because I feel like they moved on so quickly from Andromeda, and there was a lot of stuff that was left unanswered in terms of what went wrong there, and I just hope that that doesn't happen again with Anthem. And it's always so hard to tell, like, what's up to the developer, how much is up to EA as the publisher, who's really, like, do the developers want to move on from this, or it's a very complicated situation, and I just hope we get a more clear picture of it going forward, because I love the people at BioWare. I know it's not the same team it was. I know a good majority of the people that made the great BioWare games I fell in love with are no longer there, but there's just something, as a Canadian, there's such an attachment for me to BioWare because of the Canadian Edmonton roots for the studio, and there's just so much about them I love. I just want to see them like make great games that everybody loves again.
I swear, I'll drive the 3 hours up there, Nick, and I'll find out. I swear.
Yeah,
far.
I mean, I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, one of the reasons I want to get into games industry was Baldur's Gate. Like, the first thing I ever did in the games industry, getting closer to that thing was doing a fan site for Knights of the Republic. My actual real job in the games industry, like, was with BioWare. So, like, that is forever for me, like, a company that I couldn't be grateful enough, and that I really always hope the best for. I really hope, like with Anthem, as I said, like, I think there's a ton of potential. Like, when you play that game, and when you're in the moment when, like, the gameplay loop clicks, you're with your friends, you're flying around, you're throwing spells and abilities left and right. It kind of feels like you're the Avengers. Or, like, when like the things come together, like in the combat, like it feels so good still, and I really hope they get a chance, to do all that stuff they want to do. Obviously, EA is in a little bit of a interesting situation right now. As Sam earlier noted, like they got a bunch of sports game coming out this year and smaller stuff, but like they're obviously lacking like the heavy hitter for this finance year because allegedly a lot of stuff has been canceled the last couple of years. Stuff has been shuffled around, and I think you also see like a dynamic change within what it feels from the outside right now is that in the past maybe DICE was the golden goose, like they could do no wrong with the Battlefield series, but I would say very much right now the Respawn is the golden child, and I would have to say also for me I would say that Respawn for me personally I think is the developer of the generation, like coming as a new studio coming in. Releasing already so far, maybe there's going to be a fifth. So far 4 games in this generation, in a variety of genres, all of them getting fantastic review scores, getting great sales. I would be hard pressed to think of a developer that has impressed me more this generation than Respawn so far. So everything, all the success they have, I'd say is fully deserved, and I'm super happy.
DICE has some work that they really need to focus on, honestly, because I'm a longtime Battlefield fan, and I still play Battlefield 5. I love Battlefield 1, but even then, to that extent, they were not as good as some of their predecessors. So I definitely agree that Respawn is probably the golden goose at this point for EA.
Yeah, I mean, I would totally co-sign that point, Marcel. The fact is, like, look, they put out Titanfall, then they put out Titanfall 2, Apex Legends, and then Fallen Order. I mean, not only some of the top games of the gen, but also kind of saving EA's hide when it comes to more mainline AAA games here. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, especially with Respawn and DICE LA now being managed by Vince Zampella. He's studio head of both of those teams now. And you got Respawn working on multiple projects. According to Jason Schreier, there's a Fallen Order 2 in development, which isn't surprising at all. And then I wonder, okay, what does that mean for EA's other teams? What does that mean for DICE now that they're losing their support studio and they've got a Battlefield game coming in 2021? It's going to be interesting. I think EA has the potential to do a lot better next gen than they did this one, but they've got their work cut out for them all the same.
Yep, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And the big thing that we can
learn... definitely. And I mean, what is of course also quite interesting in seeing the success of Respawn is that they are the one studio within EA that doesn't fall seemingly under the you must use Frostbite as your engine mandate.
Yep.
All of their games have been like licensed engines. It's either a Source for the Titanfall and Apex Legends or Unreal with Jedi Fallen Order, and that is of course also a very interesting dynamic to see that a studio can get away seemingly with using other engines, and then also seeing that studio that gets away with using the other engines is delivering on every single game you do. So it's definitely going to be very interesting to see what EA does next generation. I also think they're going to come back much stronger than they've been the last couple of years. I think the big challenge for them, and really for a lot of companies in the games industry, has been to master this, get the right balance when you do games as a service, which is not easy. Obviously, in the past, they always relied on selling what was called a Battlefield Premium, right?
Yeah, Battlefield Premium.
They always had a Battlefield Premium passes, $50. You get 4 expansions with a bunch of maps, new vehicles. Stuff like that. For example, like I think the premium pass, for example, for Battlefield 3 was really good. Like like the themed expansions and new stuff. I loved it. I played that game so much. And getting away from from that to we still have to frequently, actually more frequently than with the with the Prime, deliver new content to people, but still be monetizing that in a way that feels fair to the players. That is a very tricky balance, and I think you've seen a lot of companies struggle with that, with getting that balance right. And I think, as EA learns that, and I think they've made great strides with Apex. I think Apex is doing a great job, as a game as a service. Just yesterday when they showed the stuff for Season 5, and now they got some light PvE elements, they're putting more emphasis on the lore. I think they're doing a fantastic job, and I think EA will learn from that and then come back stronger than they've been the last 2 to 3 years, maybe, when they, had obviously some trouble with games like Anthem, with the launch of Battlefield 2, which ever since launch has become a fantastic game. Or, of course, Battlefront 2 and Battlefield 5, which has also been struggling, it seems a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good solid points.
Yeah, and
Nick, we ready to move on to the next thing?
yes, we are. And
If he's there
this,
somewhere.
this,
Yeah, I'm gonna take that to mean that he is. Sometimes, stuff comes up, life happens. All right.
That was
No,
me.
I'm here. I'm
Yeah,
here.
it's
Hold
fine.
on.
It's
What?
fine.
Hold
I'm
on.
assuming direct control, and we will be moving on to the next point. So just give me a moment here. Let's see what he wanted us to
Hold
talk
on.
about. Yeah, so this is very
What?
quick. This one's not going to take long at all. Shot. It's yeah.
No.
It's becoming. Yeah, no, it was a matter of time. I think it's becoming increasingly apparent nothing in that kind of big physical showcase or, physical gathering, nothing like that's happening this year.
Right.
Just go ahead and get it out of your mind.
Yes.
The Paris Game and Tokyo Games Week, I think, was canceled as well, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
I saw that announced.
I'm here.
Mhm.
I'm here now.
Yeah,
I think.
I'm sure when the Game Awards are held at the end of the year, they're going to be fully digital. Events have been able to adapt to a digital presentation and which ones haven't, because I know Gamescom is still going forward in a digital manner. Jeff Keighley's still doing his opening night live at Gamescom presentation, in late August. So it's, I don't know. It's certainly interesting. It's certainly interesting.
I mean, that is going to be, like a very good point, because, for example, with Gamescom, obviously, the big pull for people to come together is to play games, right? Like, something like E3 is largely for the general gaming public. It's announcement driven, and you can replicate that just by having live streams. Maybe it's not as fancy, maybe you won't have Keanu Reeves on there, but you can see the games. Obviously, for press, it's different because they normally get to play the games to get the access to developers for interviews. But with something like Gamescom, so I've been, I think, at every Gamescom that was ever held except for one. And every year you have 350,000 people pushing each other through halls, waiting in line for 4, 5, 6 hours to play a game. I'm really not quite sure yet how they want to replicate that. Obviously, the opening live with Jeff Healey, yes, you can do that. That's no problem at all. But then again, that was a new thing last year, so that's not really what Gamescom is about for people so far. It's not about the announcements, and I think it's the same with Paris Games Week. Like, in the past, sometimes Sony has done a press conference, mostly not. But really, that show is for people to come together, play games, meet influencers, do cosplay, whatever. So I'm really curious to see how they will be able to replicate those events that are not about announcements. Whereas the announcement stuff, yes, I think you can do a fairly good job just taking that stuff online.
Yeah, absolutely. Am I back now?
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
Yes,
I don't know what happened there. It said I was talking in Discord, but apparently I wasn't. So, yeah. I think physical events where you're going to get hands-on with stuff, like a bunch of Canadian events just got canceled, which makes me sad. One was where a bunch of Canadian studios would come and show stuff. It was where I got to get hands-on with, like, Assassin's Creed, because there was a bunch of people from Ubisoft Toronto showing off some stuff. I got hands-on with Cuphead before launch. And it really sucks because, like, as someone who's a very, very, I cannot say this enough, a very small piece of the very small fan site industry, it really sucks that some of these events are going away because it gave us a lot of access. But it's the thing is the industry is going to change and adapt as it goes. I'm really interested to see how developers are going to do these preview events and stuff going forward. Like we've already seen, as Sam's mentioned on the show before, digital preview events for press and everything else, and how those have been working out and everything else. It's going to be a change because it's going to be a while before the world gets back to normal with this, unfortunately. Yeah. Like, I'm blessed enough where I am, we're 15 days clear of any COVID infection. In the past, I think in the next, 100 miles of where I am, we're clear right now. So I'm really blessed in that way. But around the world, a lot of people are not so lucky in that regard. So it's going to be a while before things can, quote-unquote, return to normal, and it'll be interesting how normal they return to. But the next topic breaks my heart. It hurts. So there was a whole bunch of drama surrounding the Doom Eternal original soundtrack. Originally released, and people were like, the audio doesn't seem right. Everything else, Mick Gordon made some public statements about he didn't mix it. And then, of course, everyone hopped on the Bethesda hate train. which is a very popular hate train to jump on, and absolutely just bashed id Software into the dirt. And specifically, I believe the gentleman's name is Chad Moldenhauer, who is head of audio design at id Software. He took a metric ton of abuse from the general public and saying that he ruined mixed music and yada yada yada. And then Bethesda came out and made a public statement about what actually went on, and basically Gordon was unable to make deadlines that they were very flexible about. And they tried to make it work, and he just didn't deliver on what he was supposed to, and which has now led to them going their separate ways, as he won't be involved in the Doom Eternal single-player DLC. And I understand the business side of it, but as a fan, it's still so depressing to me to not be able to think about that, you know, if id Software remakes Quake, there's like a 99% chance that, you know, Mick Gordon's not going to be involved in the soundtrack, and he's done some of the best soundtrack stuff in recent memory for myself personally. But guys, any thoughts on id Software and Mick Gordon going separate ways?
Reminds me of like some Marty O'Donnell stuff, man.
Yeah, that was a hard one too.
Mm-hmm. That's like synonymous stuff, man.
Yeah, I don't think I have too many thoughts on it other than when you get someone to create your soundtrack for you and you keep trying to be flexible with them, and you keep pushing back the deadline and you still don't meet that deadline, well, in the end, it's a game, it's a business. You need to have a product to push out, and if you don't have someone providing some sort of end of that product, you're going to have to replace that someone that will. So It really just, in the end, it just makes the most business sense. And sorry, if you don't bring it, this happens everywhere. Like, if you're a simple employee that gets hired for a specific task and you're not able to achieve that task, what happens? You get fired. Simple as that. So it's just the way business works.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I think the thing that doesn't surprise me at all is that it comes across. It doesn't come across to me like id Software were jerks. And it doesn't come across to me like Mick Gordon was a jerk either. It comes across more that he's a perfectionist to his core, and he's become more and more obsessive with the quality of his work, and not being happy with it and redoing it, and not being happy with it and redoing it. And I know a lot of musicians that not necessarily do soundtracks, but just musicians in general are constant perfectionists, and they're never quite happy with what they're doing. And the fact that there was a point where, like, that id Software could have been sued if they could not deliver the soundtrack, because, like, this soundtrack wasn't available at launch. Like, it was supposed to be available with your collector's edition at launch, but they literally bumped the date back for Gordon so much so that they just told him, please have the original soundtrack to us mixed by the launch of the game. And the thing is if they pushed it back even further, people could have sued for their collector's editions not including stuff, and it's really, really messy. And I don't know, I'm really sad about it. I just love what he's done so far, and I love id Software, and I hate how people drummed it into a hate issue when it's really a multifaceted issue. And I think that's something that a lot of people lose context with, is like, it's never just black and white with these things. There's always two sides to these industry issues. Like, people talk about, you know, we've talked about crunch, we've talked about this, we've talked about that. It's just that there's always two sides to a story, and then somewhere in the middle's the truth. And I don't know. Anyone else have anything to add to that whole scenario?
I mean, what I found like very disappointing in mixed behavior, because when I saw the story from, like, you know, like the version from id Software that Marty posted on Reddit, then my first thought was, you know, good on him, you know, for putting that out there, because I think it's unacceptable, like the way people jumped on id Software and their employees, and, you know, as like the guy responsible for that project. I think it's great that he goes out there, defends his people. And assuming now, of course, that Marty's version is entirely true, What has been very disappointing, I think, is mixed behavior in like throwing people under the bus. Specifically saying stuff like, oh, some marketing guy, even though like he very well knew who did it. It was like the guy who is in charge of audio design, which has nothing to do at all with marketing. But of course, saying stuff like, oh, some marketing dude is like red meat to gamers. To immediately jump on id Software. So I think that was very disappointing, like his behavior. And the story sounded uncomfortably believable to me because it reminded me of some people that I have worked with in the past. Also, musicians or audio people, where if I'd been told the same story with their name, I would have been like, yeah, that sounds totally believable. Like pushing it off, being a perfectionist, and in the end, like somebody else has to do it, and they're like, oh well, this is shit now. So I, assuming Marty's story is true, I would be very disappointed, like in how Mick handled that, throwing them under the bus. When in fact, it's a straightforward thing where you sometimes can say, hey, it didn't work out with the timelines or something. There is no good or bad guy, and that's that. Like that, everybody could have easily saved face. So that was a bit disappointing and like also a bit surprising to me.
Yeah, I was really surprised because like when people started going, well, this Doom soundtrack doesn't sound like a traditional Mick Gordon soundtrack, and then he came out and said, well, I don't know what happened with the mixing. He could have avoided all of that and not just said that. He could have said there was issues, there was complications, and completely could have just played it middle of the ground, but he just tried to feign that he didn't know what happened with it. And I think
it came across to me, Nick, in this manner of, oh, I'm just gonna let them, tank the inevitable fan response here, instead of just saying, hey guys, we had some issues, there were deadlines, things happened, sorry, enjoy the handful I mixed, the others are there as well. I think something like that would have been, even if he and Bethesda hadn't continued on, which they might not have, but if they wanted to leave the bridges unburnt, so to speak, just give a professional response. Yeah. And and one thing I will say that I saw from a lot of people is, well, they put him under an unrealistic time frame. I'm like, okay, maybe you can make that argument. Maybe. I'm not a composer, so I'm not going to say either way. But here's the thing. He wasn't hired until after the legal agreement for the collector's edition, including the soundtrack, was made. They did not. He saw that time frame and agreed to it.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, as a business, you have to make calls. It sucks. It sucks big time. Mick is easily, far and away, one of my favorite composers of this generation, alongside Gareth Coker. His work on Wolfenstein and Doom speaks for itself. His work on Prey is incredibly underrated. One of the most eerie, incredible soundtracks I've ever listened to. And so I love his work. I'll continue loving his work, but it doesn't change the fact that he is, to me, based on what we know, in the wrong here.
Yeah, just
and yeah, I mean, like Nick touched on it at the start, like it is of course like also very calculated, because I think everybody who works in this industry knows that it is not very hard to incite people against Bethesda. So it's not very hard to get the Bethesda hate train rolling if that's what you want. And so yeah, it did feel very calculated, like the way he put it, like, oh, I don't know what happened, like some marketing guy from Bethesda. Whereas yeah, as you said, like even if they had no plan of working together, like it could have easily been avoided, like in a way where everybody saves face. People of course are going to be disappointed, but they see this is how the industry works. And yeah, as you said, maybe the timeline was tight, but he agreed to it. Also, for what it's worth, as a contrary example, I can just say the last game I worked on, our composers delivered several hours of soundtrack, great orchestral soundtrack, several months in advance of the game's release. Physical copy of the soundtrack was available on the release date. So it's also not something where I think like it's impossible for these things to happen. But of course, things change between projects.
Yeah, and unfortunately, basically in closing on this, I think Mick actually shot himself in the foot with this, because with id coming out as a collective and saying no, he couldn't hit deadlines, this is what's happening, I think it's going to be really hard. I'm not going to say it's going to be insanely hard, because someone will hire him regardless. But I think it's going to be a little bit more limited than it could have been if he had split amicably from them, because now people are going to be like, oh, Mick doesn't do deadlines well. And in an industry that's basically run on deadlines, that might persuade some people to look in a different direction, especially if he's not consistent. And like, it kind of makes me wonder, like, how long have they, like, is this a thing they've had issues with him since they've had him? Was this always something they kind of worked around? Is this something new? It just raises a lot more questions than it answers. And I don't know. I just hope we get more great Mick Gordon soundtracks and id Software keeps making fundamentally amazing games. And that's really all that we can do with it. Now, speaking of fundamentally amazing soundtracks and games for some people, there was a new...
Nick.
hey, different strokes, different folks. For those that were interested, I'm not sure if anyone watched it on this panel because everyone's trying to avoid spoilers right now. So there was a new The Last of Us trailer, The Last of Us Part 2 trailer. Did anyone here watch it? Because I didn't bother.
I did. I watched the trailer.
Okay.
I did too.
Okay.
And I want to put it out there. I won't tell anyone if you don't want to, but like if anyone's being careful about dodging spoilers, I understand. But seriously, this trailer spoils nothing. It's fine. Like it is seriously fine to go watch. I understand everyone's paranoid right now, though.
And also worth pointing out that Sony very wisely disabled the comments underneath the video on YouTube.
Very smart. Very smart.
Very, very smart choice, yes. You know, which is really, it's fucking heartbreaking that every tweet they put out, like Naughty Dog or, Bruce or so, is always like, please don't read the comments. Like, how bad is it if that's what you have to tell your community? That is really sad.
We talked about this last week, Marcel, but it's heartbreaking. I literally cannot imagine a more heartbreaking situation involving a game leak. I can't. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But moving on in a more positive direction. So we all watched the trailer then. Did I understand that correctly? Okay. So what did you guys think? Because I personally loved it. I thought it was very dark and moody, and it wasn't out of place for like an Aronofsky type film. like one of his weird works. I thought it was very fitting.
I'm just ready, man.
Yeah, it's one.
Game.
I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't mean to step on you.
Man, that's all I got.
I was gonna agree with Sam. It's like it's very dark, very moody, very brutal, and you just go, I gotta play that. It didn't. Right? It wasn't to that point where you're like, I don't know if I can stomach it. It's just like, wow, like this is gonna be some crazy ride. It's definitely like the sophomore effort. It's like, everyone's grown up into a homicidal maniac.
Yeah.
Yeah,
more so. We're all coping in different ways. Some people want Animal Crossing, some of us want brutal games. Okay,
right. Some of us want brutal games after too much Animal Crossing.
That's true.
Someone stole all my turnips.
Well, when I want go from dealing with little like animal people, maybe I want to go strangle and murder someone in the end. Who knows? Like different feelings exude from different games. Just saying. Animal Crossing.
Hey man,
want to kill someone.
To quote Doc on Twitter, not in a negative light either, is The Last of Us Part 2 is giving off hardcore misery porn vibes. And I think that's such a actually like I know he means it in like in a negative way, but I actually love that term because like there's some games I play that I know are going to make me absolutely miserable, but I enjoyed the storytelling regardless. And I replayed a few weeks back. I replayed Spec Ops: The Line, and that's another game that just hits completely differently. And as someone who's spoiled on The Last of Us Part 2, because I willingly jumped in like an idiot, and it freed me because I got to watch 2 hours of leaked footage after that, which was amazing. I'm 100% ready for this game, and people that are not interested anymore because someone posted key plot points on Reddit, I think are going to miss out on a lot because you can make any game sound stupid if you list out the key plot details. And yeah, I think the trailer probably was amazing if it looks anything like the 2 hours of footage I've seen.
So is this one you're looking forward to or not? I just realized I haven't really seen you tweet about it much.
For me?
Yeah, for you.
No, not well. I have to admit, I may now cast myself forever out of the gaming community by saying that I've never played the first Last of Us, just because. And this, we briefly touched upon this earlier with Days Gone. I don't like quote unquote zombie games, or like the whole post-apocalyptic vibe is like something that doesn't really do much for me. Which is really weird because I have bought a PS3, a PS Vita, and a PS4 almost exclusively to play the Uncharted series. So you would think that anything that Naughty Dog put out is like something I would jump on day one, but for some reason, like not Last of Us never really clicked with me. Maybe I'm not into misery porn the way other people are. I don't know, but like I've been thinking, like with all the discussions, of course, going on recently, I've been thinking that maybe I should play the first one, even though of course right now maybe it feels like a weird time to play something like that. And I'm one of those people who right now I think is quite happy to stick to like more upbeat and happy fare than that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know obviously even then, without, as somebody who doesn't care about it that much and like who has read the spoilers and has seen some stuff, yeah, like I'm just like super sad for the people at Naughty Dog, like the way this has turned out, and the ridiculous hate they're getting, for what is in all likelihood still going to be an absolutely, fantastic video game. So, yeah, I just hope that when it comes out, like when the reviews come in, when the sales come in, when the reactions of the actual fans looking forward to come in, like I think, or I hope that the people at Naughty Dog can be like, well, we had a rough spell, but like in the end, like it's great. It's very satisfying to see how people love our work, because what they're going through right now, like it's horrible.
Yeah, I don't think in the whole time that I've paid attention, like I've only been in the quote-unquote social media gaming space since about 2013, but I've never seen such intentionally targeted hatred as I've seen at the developers of Naughty Dog. And I'm not just talking like their brand account or even just Neil Druckmann. I'm just saying the general, like some Naughty Dog employees that have Twitter accounts that have had to lock their Twitter accounts because of targeted abuse and everything else, because specific YouTubers are making videos and saying these are the reasons that this game is this way and blah 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 blah. And it's so horrible. Like, I think Marcel's a man of culture. He's avoided The Last of Us. I respect that because
no,
as a whole, I think it's an average game. I think it's like, in terms of Naughty Dog's games, I don't even think it's close to their best game at all. I think the Uncharted series is leaps and bounds ahead of The Last of Us. But at the same time, I understand how many people love this game, how many people are emotionally attached to this game. And this whole situation has been terrible for actual fans and the developers to a point that I've never seen before. Like, this level of social media hatred and everything else. Like, I've been spoiled, so, like, comment sections aren't that bad for me. But, like, as Marcel said, like, you can't look at a Druckmann tweet anymore. Like, you can't click on it. You can't look at, like, Straley's tweets. You can't look... Anyone who's even vaguely associated with Naughty Dog or the brand itself, you can't look in their tweets. You can't look at PlayStation UK tweets anymore. Because
And I mean, it's not even that, because we're going to get to that anyways in a second, but like, remember when last week when Ubisoft had the teaser on Twitch for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, like people were non-stop spamming that chat with spoilers for a completely unrelated game. So it's
Wow.
it feels like to me, like if you are allergic to spoilers or something, like probably the best thing you can do is avoid any and all gaming discourse until you've played that game, which of course, in a year like this where everybody is excited for like all the gaming news and discussion around it, like it's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
It's weird, man. Like, it's like you can almost like take your pick about what about this developer like someone doesn't like. Like, you're right. I've never seen, like, maybe EA, but even with that, I've not seen like this level of aggression toward a studio.
Like, and that's the thing, is like, what absolutely blows my mind is like the amount of hatred directed towards like Druckmann himself is like, it's not even just one thing. It's, you ruined the story. It's not what I wanted. You're interjecting your own politics into the game. You're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing this. There's like 7 different reasons that people are hating one specific man involved with this game. And it's mind-blowing to me that people have this much free time. Well, actually it's not. We're quarantined right now. People have a lot of free time right now. But I could think of more positive ways that we could do that. And I just never understood what the point is at throwing hatred at something you don't like. Like, there's tons of things I don't like, but I just don't talk about them. Like, I don't like a majority of the Marvel movies. I'm not going to go tweet at the Russo brothers endlessly that they don't make good movies. That's
Well, first of all, it's good you didn't say that before I appeared on the show. Otherwise, I might not have. I think that is like, I'm not sure. It's like the second or the worst second thing you've ever said. Probably after you said you never played Mass Effect. But yeah, like, that is like.
What we deal with, Marcel?
Like having worked in the community space, like from the get-go, that was like a thing that, like, to this day, after years of doing this shit, that will never like compute with me. Like, people coming every single day, spending what feels like several hours on a forum, telling you that everything you do, everything about the game is shit. And when I was younger and like starting in this field, like, I would get really angry at these people. But these days, I feel nothing but pity. Where it's like, if spending several hours every day telling people that they should not enjoy something because you hate it, you must have like a really like empty and tragic life. Like, I feel sorry for you, because and that's the thing that you're seeing. And obviously with Naughty Dog and The Last of Us, I think it's at the intersection of, like, you have like console warrior shitheads. You have obviously a lot of like alt-right or whatever who are concerned about the politics. And you get essentially like several aspects of like the worst parts of the gaming community all jumping onto one game and on one developer, and it's absolutely mind-blowing. And in a way, I do feel sorry for these people, like, where I think if you have nothing better to do with your life, then that's sad.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I said. It's like multi-layer. You could like take your pick on what an individual, what their issue is, on any scale with this particular situation.
Yep.
It's like a big dog pile, and it's been this like for months. It seems like it's been like, and that's it. It's crazy, man. Like you said, Marcel, it's like most of these people are just trying to like do their job, put out a product, put their art out there, to be judged on an artistic scale, and now it's like they can't even get to that point. Which is hard enough. It's hard enough to put something that you put yourself into and put it out there for the world to, for your years of work to tell you, within a few hours of playing you, how terrible you are or how great you are, or give you all this feedback. That's not an easy thing to do. But now you got all this other stuff that goes along with it. It's insane.
Yeah, and I to wrap this topic up so we can talk about Inside Xbox, the main thing I want because I see, like, I have a lot of people I follow, they're huge fans of this franchise, and they're like, this is going to hurt the sales, this is going to do this. Don't worry about it. The game will be fine, because we've been proven time and time again, I put the gamers trademark quotation up, when the gamers get mad about something, it almost guarantees success. Don't you remember Pokemon Sword and Shield? It had like a 90% dislike ratio on the launch trailer. And those games sold 16 million copies. This is not going to kill the studio. This is not going to kill the hype for this game. It's just a bunch of very vocal, for lack of a better word, shitheads. They're just trying to cash in on hate peddling. And most of them just lead very, very sad existences and make a career out of basically leading harassment movements. And once this is over, they'll move on to something else. It'll be EA or loot boxes or something. Who knows? They'll get mad about something.
Like murder hornets.
That's something I could get behind, though. Like, I could get mad about murder hornets, but, like, I just need some of these people to get hit with murder hornets at this point. But yeah, it's insane. So we'll move on to some positive stuff, though. We got our first look at next generation gameplay-ish. So
sideways shade.
It's not even sideways shade, okay?
It's just funny.
I'm going to put this out here because I'm going to let you guys talk about this more than me, because I didn't really get to see a lot of this live, and I've kind of been detached from social media this week because of things. But I will say it's so interesting to me. In 2016, 2017, people perpetually complain, oh, another 15-minute gameplay trailer? Oh, can't they just give us a short trailer? And now people are like, where are the gameplay trailers? Why don't I get 15 minutes of gameplay? Make up your mind. What do you want? Because
You don't know.
I know, but the thing is like, you say that these companies don't listen to your feedback, but when they do, because they have their ears to the ground on this stuff, and they adapt, then you're like, well, why don't you do it the old way now? And it's just like, what do you want? All I'll say is I'm endlessly excited for Assassin's Creed Valhalla because they're doing my favorite mythos, and the head writer on that team is absolutely phenomenal, and I cannot wait to see what kind of story they carve out. And them saying it's a more contained game than Odyssey in terms of length. So excited. But I'll toss over to you guys. I'll let Jared go first on this one. What did you think of some of the next generation games that we're going to be seeing upcoming in terms of third party? Important stress.
Third party, for sure, absolutely. I think the two games that, well, there's a few games that really stood out to me. One was Scorn, then Medium, and then the other one was Aorus or Horus, I think it's called. I can't remember. Chorus, that's the one. I even wrote up a freaking article on that one. Jesus. Anyways, those three games kind of really stood out to me. I was really impressed by those. I understand that we didn't really actually get a lot of gameplay look. There are more teases of the games, and we did get kind of small snippets of gameplay intertwined with those trailers as well, but it wasn't as substantial enough to really kind of save the audiences, especially when it came into terms of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. People really wanted to see Series X gameplay for that one. Now, it kind of sucks because, yeah, it was all kind of basically just in-game cinematic, not really in cinematic, but just in movies kind of stuff. It'd be nice to have had maybe a small in-look to see exactly what makes it run really well on Series X and how good it looks on it. But at the same time, I also think Xbox was trying to, well, from what I heard and read, was they only had a certain amount of time to really show off the game. And I think that was more so on Xbox trying to address a lot of the criticism from the past about Inside Xbox being too long in the first place and too dragged out. So I think this time around, especially from working at home, they tried to scrunch it down into a smaller episode to really kind of give what the fans wanted. But I guess at this point in time, they tried to do it, but this isn't what the fans wanted at this point in time. They wanted a deeper look, when in the past they've given deeper looks into games. But I guess they kind of just misdelivered on this one, and there's a lot of, not really miscommunication, but it's hard to really put the right word onto it. But I don't think it was handled correctly. It could have been a lot better, but at the same time, we did get a look to see at some games to see what was coming out next generation. Some good looks at some really exciting titles, and I'm looking forward to what's coming up.
Yeah, I'll jump in really quick, and before Mom, Marcel, and Sam go, I honestly think if the term Series X, next gen, and none of that stuff was put in there, it probably wouldn't have been maybe it wouldn't have been hit as hard.
Yeah.
Frankly, I think that's pretty much what it comes down to. People were at a fever pitch because they're kind of in their heads, they're ready to see like next gen, what next gen is going to represent, and I don't know what that means for people. In terms, like Jared said, there were a few games I saw there that I was like, that looks awesome. Like, I really want to play that game. I want to play this game. Like Scarlet Nexus looked fantastic. The Medium looked awesome. Like you said, Jerry Chorus. A lot of really cool stuff there. But I think it's one of those things where I think they finally got the pacing for an Inside Xbox down.
Yeah. And
now it's like, but it's still kind of like Inside Xbox. It's like that brand can't win.
I don't know. It can't catch a break right now. No, it can't.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I kind of laughed at myself. I didn't really share it like social media wise. I even say to you guys, I just kind of laugh at myself when it's like, you know, inside Xbox presents. I'm like, oh, maybe they shouldn't even tie it to inside Xbox, you know, and just do whatever they're gonna do. But I don't know. I just kind of feel like, yeah, if you know, you put out there with like the next gen thing, I think it starts to set an expectation, and then you look at the games that are presented. Nothing really wrong with those games, but it's like, you know, it's like crossing that line of Xbox One to Xbox Series X, and then it's like you're talking the next generation kicks off and all these different things, and it sets weird expectations, and it's already hard enough to tame the lions on social media. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest uphill battle they had with that is when they said we can't wait to reveal our third party. Like when people were thinking third party, everyone immediately went to like CD Projekt Red levels, but there's tons of third party developers. It didn't automatically mean you're going to get a ton of stuff from, you know, I put in quotations, the top developers, because I don't really believe in the whole this developer is better than this developer. They just get different games, so to speak, and sometimes some developers shine brighter than others at certain times. But from what I saw, I was happy with what I saw. I thought there was some titles that were really interesting. Call of the Sea looked interesting. I was happy to see Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. I'm so excited for that game as a fan of the original. And seeing Yakuza come day and date to Xbox, that is something that should not be downsized, considering what Japanese support looked like for the Xbox One at the start of the generation.
No, and I just say again, like, yeah, just the fact that Yakuza is becoming or has become a little bit more mainstream is wild.
Sam, Marcel, thoughts?
Did you get a chance to watch the full showcase?
Yeah, watched it live, as it were. You know, because that was at least something that's nice. Where usually Sony is not so nice. That was very Euro friendly timing wise. And towards the end of the afternoon, I was very torn. So I had heard a lot of whispers before, you know, about more or less what to expect. So I toned down my personal expectations. And I was a bit baffled about the way Microsoft handled this because in the past, you know, obviously during the earlier stages of this generation, I think they had huge issues with their messaging. Like they rarely got it right. Whereas I would have said that, you're like, maybe since mid of last year, like so far, like for this, you know, this year, the communication about the next generation, about the Series X, I felt was very well done. You know, like it felt, you know, they put information out there. They didn't overhype stuff. So I think like they did a pretty good job. But I cannot for the life of me understand why they framed it the way they did. You know, like as the first look at this next generation, which more changes the game. If it had just been a normal Inside Xbox, I would have said, you know, this is probably the best Inside Xbox they've ever had. You know, like it was a great lineup. It was varied. But you know, just putting that framing on there of the first look at the next generation, that carries a ton of expectations. You're like, if you think back to days past, you know, what do people expect to see the first time you show next gen gameplay? You know, it's stuff like Quantum Break, Killzone 2. You know, like that's, you know, really the heaviest of hitters that a company can roll out. And obviously, I don't think the games were that caliber, which, you know, is not a disrespect. You know, a lot of them were smaller games or smaller studios that doing great games. So, you know, it's not against them. It's just like, I think Microsoft raised expectations that those games didn't have any chance at all of living up to, just by, you know, this whole making it about next gen. Again, if it had been a normal Inside Xbox, it would have been fantastic. Also, you know, it sets a very weird message, I think, if the biggest new reveal you have on there is a port of a PS4 game. You know, again, nothing against Yakuza, but like just it paints a weird picture, I think, of like going into the next gen, which in general, due to the fact that like a lot of the games are obviously cross-gen and Microsoft themselves want to push games to still come out on last-gen consoles, like I think it's going to be like a weird tightrope act for them to really communicate the benefits of next gen while also making sure that people don't feel left behind on the current gen, which they don't want to do. But yeah, for me personally, it was disappointing because there were not really that many games that would appeal to me personally. I'm looking forward to Vampire because the first one was great. I don't care about horror games at all, so I won't play it. But I thought that the medium looked really, really cool. I also think it's impressive. If you look back at that team, like I think the first game that came out from Bloober Team was so bad that they had to almost completely redo it after launch. And you're like, they've progressively been growing, like doing Blair Witch. Now this, I think that's like really cool to see, like the evolution of the studio over time with different projects. But yeah, I think like the way it was framed, it was quite disappointing to me. I'm super happy, of course, with Assassin's Creed because it's one of my favorite franchises. As Nick, I have to agree, it's a setting or like a mythology that I've always been fascinated with. So that's great to see. The entire controversy around gameplay was a bit funny to me because strictly speaking, as somebody who works in game marketing, like it's a gameplay trailer. It's what we call gameplay. If it's not CG, if it's not rendered outside the engine or something, it's for us it's a gameplay trailer. And as you can see, it's not cutscenes or stuff. It's stuff that gameplay stuff that is being captured with a cinematic camera. Probably in the game's editor or something. So yeah, it's one of those things where like it's you can say technically it's right, it's gameplay. But gaming is also for a lot of people it's a very emotional thing. Like if somebody's emotionally unhappy, then you cannot reason to them with technically speaking. So yeah, but I'm sure that we will see a lot more gameplay from that game and many others. Obviously, right now with a lot of people working from home, it's a tough situation. This showcase even being 1 month ahead of E3, whereas I would assume a lot of stuff that was originally planned for E3 probably is going to come later in the year now due to COVID. So it was honestly, like for me, I don't quite understand why Microsoft called it promoted the way they did, and also why they had this event at this time in the first place. It was from the get-go very weird to me. Like if I was a console first party, the first thing I would want to show would be my own games. Like obviously something like Halo, because I think it's very rare that a company gets to launch with their biggest IP on a new console. So that is an amazing opportunity for Microsoft. So yeah, it's been a bit weird. Like there's great games there. I'm super happy about the chorus because we have unfortunately a very small games industry in Germany. That game coming from Germany getting great reception has been amazing to see. So I'm super happy for them. But it was pretty weird. It was honestly very weird to me to see the whole thing go down like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty fair. Really quick, I'll say this. Like, I think as a games showcase, it was great. As a games showcase at Inside Xbox, even, it was fantastic. Probably their best ever. As a next-gen look as to why the average consumer needs a next-gen console, it was poor. Very poor. That's what it boils down to for me. And again, I want to be very clear because I've heard this from multiple developers, multiple people working in games, marketing, stuff like that. I understand putting together trailers and stuff like that while you're working from home is very difficult. It's actually, I've been told by some, more difficult than working on the game itself because of how you have to collaborate and how you have to get those pieces to mesh together that are all still in progress and all on the same server and doing that. So I'm sympathetic. I really am. I want to be very clear about that. I think the marketing was just wrong. If you were going to do this before your big first-party event, which should be big, I think it's going to be big. It certainly needs to be big. If you're going to do this, then you shouldn't have said this is your first look at next-gen gameplay. You should have just let it happen, and then as it happened, people could say, oh, wait a minute, some of these are on Series X, or, oh, this is actually a Series X only game. That's neat. Just take people by surprise. Don't announce it beforehand. Yeah, just say, exactly. Like, imagine how people would have been shocked if they thought, okay, this is just a third-party game showcase. Wait a minute, what? The medium is Series X only? Huh? Yeah. Because it's a good variety of games. And two of them, I mean, actually, not two of them, four of them, or 4 or 5 really, are actually Xbox exclusive. They signed a bunch of third-party games here. Call of the Sea looks really interesting, has some of the voice actors from Firewatch in it, which is interesting to me. I love the look of that game. Chorus was alright, not really my kind of thing, but I understand there aren't many games like that, so I certainly appreciate it being there. The medium seems interesting. It's fascinating, like Marcel said, how Bloober has grown. Scorn is disgusting, but it is making a bunch of people discover the works of H.R. Geiger for the first time, so I'm very happy about that. It made my timeline just squick out, so that's a win. I'll support.
Man, that game makes you squirm.
Oh, dude, like that is so uncomfortable. Like, oh, holy crap, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, I
You
mean
know,
that wall Dick was just like you look at it and you're like,
Yeah, I'm like, what is this?
did you guys have the same thing where like you were wondering the entire time if this is an alien game or not?
yes,
I was
Yeah.
watching the entire
did.
time and I was thinking, is it not? Because
I was like,
it's
Alien
so
Isolation
clearly
2?
that the art direction of Geiger. It's like I'm not sure what is this right now.
Yeah, I thought it was Alien Isolation 2. I was like, come on, let's go Prometheus kind of setting. Let's
Yeah,
do this.
yeah.
Oh, what
Well,
is this? It's scored what?
Yeah, no, I
Or a
did.
cool
I
video.
realized about halfway through. I realized halfway through. Oh, wait a minute! This is that game that was announced years ago. So I'm glad they finally got a deal. Second Extinction. There is not a lot of dinosaur games for reasons I can't comprehend. We basically
Yeah.
haven't gotten any. So you know what? A 3-player game where I can blow up dinosaurs? Sure,
I'll take it.
cool, awesome. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Okay, I'm super hyped for that game. I have the collector's edition pre-ordered. Okay, I want to be clear. Like, I am super hyped for that game. I love the direction. I love Ismail as a director, what he's doing with the story. I just think there was an opportunity to show a bit more there. And the fact that even the director said, hey, you expected more, we should have given you more, tells me maybe they should have capped it off a bit differently. I understand, due to how marketing technically works. Yes, technically it was in engine, and I do appreciate that. It wasn't, CGI or whatever, but it would have been cool just to see a 5-minute Viking raid, in my opinion. And I'm sure we will see that later in the summer. But yeah, but that's basically a summary of my thoughts. Is great games showcase, poor next gen showcase.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of alluding to, Sam. I was saying as an inside Xbox is probably their best one, just for how fast paced it was, and it was like kind of what people have always asked for, like games without the added cringe type stuff in between that stretches it out. And so it was like boom, 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 let's go. But yeah, I think if we're gonna Monday morning quarterback it, if you do this thing where you don't really overhype the whole next gen portion of it, you're showing these things, and then you put that logo in there that says enhanced for Series X, it gets the message across.
Yes.
And then later you talk more about that icon on social media. Because
exactly.
Now people are like, wait, what is that?
Exactly, Eric. And think about if they had done it that way instead, and then that tweet that they did the night beforehand, instead they could have done it right after the showcase and said, this is the logo for Xbox Series X optimized. If a game has this logo, it means they did extra work. That would have been a really cool way of doing it. And I think it's frustrating to me. It's very frustrating to me because, no disrespect to some of the games we got. I enjoyed Rise. Thank you, Resogun. Like, Resogun was great. Rise of Rome was a good game. Like, I liked it. But this crop of launch games is more interesting to me than the one we had for the PS4 and the Xbox One. Overall, in my opinion, it's a superior crop of launch games, but the problem is, when you hear next-gen gameplay, people want that Killzone Shadowfall moment. That moment where something that was not possible on the console before just unfolds before you, and holy crap, how is this even real? Right. That's what needs to be provided. That's what Sony needs to provide whenever they finally decide to start talking, and that's what Microsoft needs to provide at their July first-party showcase, because that's what people want.
Yeah, like,
I think like that is the question, really. With their policy that they have of saying for the first 2 years we don't want any Series X exclusives, will Microsoft even be in a position to do that thing where you say, hey, this wouldn't be possible, because it has to be possible on the last gen, right? Like, so they maneuvered themselves, which, again, like on the one hand, absolutely have to be commended for that, because it's obviously super consumer friendly, especially in time right now, where there's a lot of economic uncertainty for a lot of people, to say, hey, for the next 2 years, you won't be left behind. Like, the machine you already bought, you spend a couple $100 on, you will be able to play all these cool new games from us. That's amazing. On the other hand, of course, when it comes to messaging, and for example, yesterday, I think Game Informer had a very interesting editorial to that extent, where, like, so far, companies haven't really communicated, what really the hype thing is about next gen, and also like the enhanced for Series X. Like, we know that badge exists and it says something, but what exactly it is, nobody really knows.
All right, and I agree. I definitely agree with that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah, sure. No, so for example, that was also like the problem with like the way this was framed, where just saying this, the first look at next gen, it puts a lot of pressure on these games that I hate. I don't want to be disrespectful to other games. Maybe not all of them lived up to. For example, something like a Second Extinction. I saw that. I thought to myself, well, there is nothing here that I haven't seen more impressively done in current gen games, right? So again, it's a small studio and all of that. So like really like just putting that next gen batch on it, as you said, like people expect that Killzone moment. They expect the remember that first Uncharted 4 thing, like with Nathan being stranded on that beach,
Right.
that blew people away. People expect kind of like that stuff. And like
Ye-
right now, Microsoft is a very weird situation. Like, how do you tell people the next gen is going to be amazing if you exclusively show games? I think sure, yeah, there was the Medium, but like almost exclusively show games that are running on the current console. It's like that very weird balance.
Marcel, and I'm definitely not working in marketing at Xbox, obviously. So this is definitely some Friday morning, Monday morning quarterbacking here. But I think what you have to do, and this is a challenge, make no mistake, even though they're doing more next gen only stuff, Sony is still going to face this, where the visual leap without ray tracing isn't going to be as extreme. Certainly not over a stream. You can't show HDR over a Twitch stream. You can't show the real effects of ray tracing over a Twitch stream. Not until it's like actually in people's living rooms. 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second. That isn't going to show over a Twitch stream. So I don't have the answer, but it's definitely going to be more complex. I think what a good idea for Microsoft to do, because they can still do this with cross-gen games, is show fast loading. Show, I don't know, like completely spitballing, a mission in Halo Infinite where instead of the traditional loading bar between missions that you have to do every single game in the series, doesn't matter, like we still have the loading bars, it's just seamless. Just snap your fingers and you're there. I think if you showed that, the casual audience will understand, okay, wait a minute, that's not possible on my machine right now.
Yeah, I want to agree with you on that one, Sam, because we're at a point where graphics are always great, but not saying that we won't get some things that look spectacular, but the returns are diminishing. So you're going to have to think outside the box on ways to convey the message that this is what the next gen is going to be about. And it's those things that we've talked about show after show. Like now you start talking about what can go on in environments and what can go on with AI and what can go
right.
What's going on the screen versus how beautiful this looks.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said in my tweet, and I think Jared saw it. I think you guys saw it. I just kind of said those games. I like what I saw, and like Marcel was saying, but I look at those and I go, if this was an Xbox One X showcase, I'm good. There's new IP there. There's things going on. As a gamer, I have nothing to complain about with that. Yeah. But in this situation that we're in, and this is the challenge that these companies are going to face, you're going to have to bring all the A game, because we're in even if you're doing somewhat okay still economically, it's a big ask to get people to make that move. It's going to definitely be that message that you have to convey. And, nothing in that showcase made me say, okay, well, I'm Series X. I know that the July show is coming, and I know we're still waiting on what Sony's going to do, but they're going to have to hit those. They're going to have to hit those nails on the head constantly.
Yeah, and
Go ahead, one of you. Marcel?
Yeah, no, I just want to briefly agree with Sam. Like, it's especially this year, as we said, there's probably not going to be any physical events. It's all going to be online and streaming. That's going to be a huge challenge. Like, I remember, like, the first time that really came into focus for me was the unveiling of the PS4 Pro, where they put a ton of focus on Horizon, and you're like, it looks stunning in 4K and HDR, and you were watching that stream that was 1080p, and you're like, I'll take your word for it.
Right.
But there's absolutely no way for me to see any of what makes your machine or that game great right now in the way it's presented, because there's the technical limitations of the stream. And that's definitely going to be a challenge as well, going forward, where in the past it was, just like the density of the pixels or whatever more you had, it was fairly easy to say, this looks next gen, this was last gen. But with a lot of the stuff right now, like higher resolutions, higher frame rates, how the hell you show that off in a screenshot or something, or like in a 1080p 30 FPS live stream? That's going to be a big challenge.
And not everybody has a nice 4K big screen TV sitting at home that you can watch these on, really high quality videos that you can watch these on, sort of thing, right? So it's definitely a little bit difficult to show visually how well it can come across to someone. because apparently still there's a ton of people that haven't upgraded to even HD TVs yet. So I don't know what's going on with y'all, but if you've been watching on SD TV, you just I got issues with you then.
Well,
You don't
fight
got
me,
4K
Jared.
TV, no, you say you don't got. Yeah, I understand, but I mean HD TVs, I can go find one out in the back alley and bring it over to you.
But yeah, see, for me, I've been really excited with the games we've seen so far for next generation. But in terms of selling me their hardware, both Microsoft and Sony have done zero to absolutely get me on board with next gen. Like, the only reason I'm on board with next gen is because I write about video games, so I'm gonna have to buy a next gen console to cover things. That's literally the only reason so far. Because so far from Sony, we've had a interesting looking controller and Mark Cerny going SSD 50 times through a show. And Xbox has this really confusing showcase where they're like, this only runs on Series X, but this runs on Xbox One. And the messaging was all over the place. And I agree, like, if they had not put the next gen quotations on this, I think it would have been a great inside Xbox. And I think with them having a partnership with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, people especially went out of their way with expectations of how big these third-party partners were going to be. Like, Marcel shared the best rumor is like the fact,
man, that was so good, so fucking good.
Oh, that was so good. We're gonna see the Batman game. We're gonna see this. We're gonna see the Gary Potter RPG, which is
Gary Potter,
which has grown into such a beautiful meme now. At this point, it's just been running through Reddit, and there's part of me that's hoping the developers will run with this meme at some point, like do like a Gary Potter skin or something. Like, just make it work.
But that's one of those things that is like fascinating to me. As I said in that tweet, like, so I absolutely love few things more than speculating about who may be working on what, what games can we expect in the future, what could be announced at a show or something. But it's so weird to me, like how many people seem obsessed with setting themselves up for disappointment, because just take that list that guy posted, right? Leaving aside the fact that, like, I think there was one dead giveaway that it could not be real because he had Skull and Bones on there, and Ubisoft very clearly said that game is not coming out this finance year. Whereas there's 5 other AAA games coming out this finance year, so why would you be showing off a game that's not coming out now instead of one of the? So that I think was a dead giveaway already that this would be fake. But like even then, just like the list he had there, even in a non-Corona year, that would have been an unrealistically great E3 showcase.
Mm-hmm.
So so it's weird to me that people, you have. Why would Warner as a company put Batman, worldwide media phenomenon, Harry Potter, worldwide media phenomenon, put those two games like in the same third-party show? It's weird stuff like that to me, where I think if people just sometimes applied like the most tiny shred of common sense, I think they would be a lot less disappointed with these shows afterwards, because obviously they rarely live up to these monstrous expectations that people build up for themselves based on, bullshit and made up stuff.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like way too many people get wrapped up into the hype train of rumors and speculation. And like I'll never understand to this day why people think 4chan rumors automatically make it credible. Like how easy it is to make a 4chan account and talk HRs is incredibly easy. So I don't know why people keep running with these rumors, and like I understand why people do. It's social media presence, and people, if you get something right, people start taking you more seriously. Yada yada yada. But I went in with moderate expectations. I thought I saw some cool stuff. There's some stuff I didn't like. I'm more interested in, like, Sony and Microsoft have a mountain of work to do on selling people on next generation. I think Sony's rumored June show is going to be, I'm not going to say make or break, but will be a good telling point of where they're at. And I think Microsoft's rumored July show will be also not a breaking point, but a interesting glimpse into what we could really expect. because at the end of the day, they've done a very poor job distinguishing what makes the difference between these consoles. And I think there's a lot of work to do in that regard, and I don't envy doing that in a post-COVID world where people are being tight-handed with their money. You're trying to sell people on more expensive consoles, and it's really hard, as both Marcel and Sam have pointed out, it's really hard to show how gorgeous a game looks when you're stuck watching it on 720p on YouTube. Because, like, YouTube and Twitch normally, the fidelity takes a hit. But what people aren't forgetting is a lot. Like, I think YouTube downgraded itself to decrease bandwidth usage. So I think they dropped down significantly in resolution. So, like, you know, some people are watching this in, like, 480 or wherever the 400 equivalent is. So, like, it's hard to show people that. You gotta sell people on different aspects of your console. And that's obviously going to be up to PlayStation and Xbox to market those properly. And I think what will make or break these companies going forward heading into next gen won't be the games, because I think both companies have some really great games coming down the lines from rumors we've seen and some guarantees we know. It's going to be make or break on how they sell these consoles and how they pitch these consoles to consumers, because I think that's where the real challenge lies. Because you can talk about RAM speeds and everything else if you're a hardware guy to your heart's content. But my mom, who just bought an Xbox One X, doesn't care about RAM speed. She just bought the one that has the pretty logo that plays games in the resolution of her TV. So it's just, you've got to do better at marketing it. And I think Xbox taking the hit they did and having Aaron Greenberg come out and say, yeah, we should have worded this differently. This was poorly done. Them acknowledging that mistake alone is, I think, a great job by them in general, because there was times when they screwed up in 2016 and 2017 and they still played it off like everything was great and like that was a great showing. And
agreed.
And I'm just glad to see them handling criticism in stride and really listening to the base again. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So we'll do outros here and everything else. So Marcel, if people want to track you down on social media, where can they find you?
They can find me, and I'm always happy to talk to them on Twitter. It's @com_Raven. And I'd also be delighted if they thought that maybe that dude had like one or two valid points that he made. If you want to hear more of that, you can of course check out our podcast. It's called the Projectile Lunchcast. And you can get it, on the usual spots like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of that.
Love the name. Projectile Lunchcast is a phenomenal name.
I would love to say that I came up with it, but it was unfortunately our British game writer who did it. So all credit to him.
Yeah, and you can find all of Marcel's links are linked in the description of the YouTube video and will be also available in the Spotify versions once I get the audio uploaded. So I appreciate Marcel coming on. It was great having you on. Really enjoy your breadth of knowledge of games. And of course, have a little nerd out moment while I looked through your LinkedIn and saw you worked for BioWare and Crytek, because they made some of my favorite games growing up. So absolutely honored to have you on. And hopefully have you on again sometime.
I'd love to. Thank you guys for having me. It's been a great pleasure. I hope you get a chance soon to catch up on the Mass Effect trilogy, because it is amazing.
Yes, I'm signed.
Yes.
I feel like I'm gonna get beaten with a physical copy of Mass Effect at this point.
Steelbook version.
Ooh, Steelbook. I'll take the head trauma for the Steelbook.
Yes, you can have the Steelbook after we're done beating you with it.
Okay, whoa, we're getting into BDSM territory here. Come
on. Isn't that the usual outro of the podcast? Anyways, Sam, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter @Samuel Talbert. Happy to talk with you. You can also find me, what I write rather, on Windows Central, Android Central, and iMore. Please come comment and yell at me about how I don't know anything.
I prefer to DM you that stuff, but okay.
Well, you're nice. You're nice. Like
Get just invited to the Xbox Live Party chat.
Jared, where can people find what you do?
All right. Well, people can find me on Twitter at ragevirus_x, as well as all my writing stuff over at lordsofgaming.net, and soon my YouTube channel, The Neon Garden. So stay tuned.
Absolutely. And Eric?
Another great show. Thanks, Marcel, for coming on. You can find me when I'm not here. You can find me Wednesday night on Brat Podcast, 9 o'clock, and also on Twitter at EC Jackson with an X. You can definitely come and talk to me there, unless you're a complete tool and douchebag, and then I don't want to know you.
Yeah,
Well said.
definitely go hit up Eric and talk about next gen console specs. He loves when you tweet at him about next gen console specs.
He's like, I got the block button already prepared.
What I love the most is when you try to tell me that the specs are more important than the games. I love that.
Yeah, it's the same people that tell me I shouldn't enjoy Baldur's Gate. Those people are just wrong. And I'm Nicholas Downey. You can find me on Twitter at Undead3XVI. You can find this show on Spotify under The Gaming Perspective. All our past episodes will be uploaded and officially on there as of tomorrow morning. They're just pending right now via the great folks at Spotify. And we'll have this one uploaded about 24 hours after as well. So I appreciate everyone checking out what we do on this podcast. I appreciate the support the past few weeks. It's been great. And you can find all my written work and maybe some video work coming soon as well at lordsofgaming.net. And as always, I appreciate everyone. And I hope everyone is staying safe. Enjoy your video games and have a great night.